International Maritime Exposition with our Economic Development Specialist, Christy. And we are obviously meeting with defence personnel and key defence stakeholders regarding Gladstone, Rockhampton and Livingstone's role in our future defence presence in central Queensland. I'll move to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies, and we have all councillors present, so no apologies. The next item on the agenda, councillors, I have a few items which I'll deal with, and I'll hand over to the Deputy Mayor. I'll take right up to G4.1, where we have a procedural motion, and then I'll hand over to the Deputy Mayor after that. No messages of condolence?
Not from
There
here.
we go. No messages of condolence? No, thank you. We do have a prior notifications of conflicts of interest, so I'll hand over to Tanya.
Yeah, we do have a conflict of interest from Councillor Wagner, Mayor.
Yeah, I, Councillor Michelle Wagner, have a previously declared declarable conflict of interest in relation to agenda item G4.8, garden organics implementation variation and opt-out conditions, as the property I own is larger than the proposed eligible property size to receive garden organics or a GO service. In accordance with my previous declaration, I will remain in the room and participate in the discussion, but will not vote on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. And that has previously been resolved. Is there any other conflicts of interest? No further conflicts of interest. I'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the Mayor's statement. And of course, I'd like to start by mentioning Seniors Month, which was held across the region in October. Hugely successful event, and well done to Kylie, your team, Jacqueline and everyone who put together a fantastic program of events right across the region, which is amazing. So not just focusing on the city, but making sure those events happen right across the region. The Gladstone Engineering Alliance Major Industry Conference and Gala Awards Night was held on the 15th of October. And congratulations to everyone who received awards on those nights and that were acknowledged for their excellence in the Gladstone industry and engineering space. the 16th of October, Minister Tim Ayres was in Gladstone to announce the federal government's $2 billion green aluminium production credit, which is fantastic for Gladstone, fantastic for Boyne Smelter, reinforcing our role in Australia's energy and manufacturing future. We had the WOW Festival on the 17th and 18th of October. And again, as I said at the conference, I say again now, congratulations to our Deputy Mayor and everyone who was involved in bringing that conference to town and putting on an amazing Women of the World Festival for Gladstone. We had the 10-year celebration of the Discovery Christian College in Agnes Water on the 18th of October. And of course, we had the Gladstone Apprentice and Trainees Awards ceremony on the 23rd. And congratulations to all the recipients there. And I'll mention them if that's okay, councillors. Hopefully I don't pronounce all the names wrong. I know a couple of councillors, I think Councillor McClintock and Councillor Cameron were there, so correct me if I get the names wrong, but the first year apprentice went to Kobe Keevers, second year apprentice to Wallace McVeigh, third year apprentice to Nicholas Hall, fourth year apprentice to Trent Powell, and the trainee is Liana Dare. I think I've got that right, hopefully. And of course, the program participant was Hayley Ahern. The mentor was Ashley Webb. And a huge congratulations to Benjamin Knight, who received the prestigious Cole Brown Memorial Award. On the 26th of October, we opened the Bonsai House. And of course, we hosted Lawmac in Gladstone as well on the 30th and 31st of October. And no doubt we'll hear from Councillor Mr. Holzheimer more on that at some point, either today or at a future council meeting. And thank you, councillors who were able to attend the Best in Business Awards on Saturday night. Congratulations again to all the nominees and all the winners. That would have been a fantastic night at the Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre. Coming up on the 8th of November, I'm very excited to attend the 50th Rio Tinto Yarwin and QAL Martin Hanson Memorial Art Awards at the Gladstone Regional Art Gallery Museum. And then, of course, we have Remembrance Day services right across the region on Tuesday, November 11. So visit Council's website for more details on where services are being held. And on a sad note, the 15th of November, we will have the funeral for the late Jordana, Jordan and Chaz at the Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre, which we've worked very closely with the family on providing the facility there to say farewell to the three locals who tragically passed away in that house fire last month. Thank you, councillors. That's the Mayor's statement on current issues. I'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the confirmation of the minutes for the 7th of October 2025 G2.1. Can I get a mover, please? Thank you. Move, Councillor Holzheimer. Seconded. My screen's gone blank and I can only see the left side of the screen. That's very typical. Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Well done. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. We had a deputation, but it's being rescheduled this morning from the Queensland Community Alliance. So that deputation will take place at a later date once that's rescheduled. So I'll move straight into the officers' reports where there is a procedural motion, and I will, after we hear from Kimberly in the department, I plan to move a procedural motion, then hand over to the Deputy Mayor to chair the rest of the meeting. Over to you, Kimberly.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, we just need to move a motion that the deputation be rescheduled to a date suitable to the Queensland Community Alliance, if that's okay, please.
Happy to move.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Churchill, and seconded by Councillor Wagner. All in favour? Motion is carried. I'm sorry, my screen is only showing the left side. I don't know why, but anyway, that's iPads. That's iPads for you. I'm trying to scroll across, councillors, and see everybody, but here we are. So I won't move the procedural motion yet. I'll wait till we hear from our General Manager, Kimberly, of Customer Experience to explain why this item is being removed from the agenda today. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Morning, councillors. With reference to item 4.1, extension application for the Hummock Hill Island development made by Eaton Place Pty Limited, we have received additional information since the publication of the agenda, and we believe it is appropriate that the report not be considered today, and officers will bring back the report at an appropriate date in the future.
Thank you. I have a procedural motion that the question lie on the table. I'm not sure why it says the question. That I think it would be. Is that the correct motion there, Tanya?
Yes, that's right, Mayor.
Okay. I'm happy to move that procedural motion. No seconder is required as it's a procedural motion, but we still got to put it to the vote. Councillors, do you have any questions on this before we put that? Deputy, I might get you to chair this section because my iPad is not showing up, everybody.
No
I don't
problem.
know why. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Are we having questions, or we just move on, Mr. Mayor?
Councillors are more entitled to ask questions on any
Okay.
agenda item, even one that's being proposed to be removed.
Councillor Cameron?
Yeah, just my question is what form will this come back to us? Will it be a CIS?
I understand we will consider those questions and then wait for the advice of the officers, whether that a CIS might be an option. But Kimberly?
My intention is to bring back a CIS and then to another general meeting in the future.
Well, that's great. Anyone else? Councillor Churchill?
Absolutely. It's just probably a bit of a follow-on from Councillor Cameron at this stage. In understanding the process, I'd like to see the wording of the procedural motion, if you wouldn't mind, as such, if that could go up on the screen so that everybody could see the wording of the procedural motion. I understand the intent, just want to see the wording. And now my question appropriately is, and some of you would be well aware of my position on this particular project, and in saying that, I'd just like to get an understanding of what the timeline is. If it's a procedural motion, it's found its way onto the agenda today, understand, reading all the information, what is the timeline now for it to be able to, in supporting the procedural motion, as a follow-on from Councillor Cameron, it's coming back to a councillor information session, which is a closed forum, for further information, and then appropriately, what's the timeline for it to find it back onto Council's agenda for the future?
The current commitment is that we will have a decision made by the end of January 2026.
Could you
So
just say that again, please? Sorry.
The current commitment to the proponent is that a decision will be made by the end of January 2026. So between now and the end of January coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's the Christmas holidays and there's a
Yes.
whole range of things that
I know.
occur during the school holidays and whatever. Okay, so it'll find its way to a meeting sometime before the end of January
Yeah.
2026.
To a
Okay.
general meeting, yes.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Mr. Mayor?
No further questions from me. I'm happy for the procedural motion to proceed whenever you're ready.
Okay, so
Sorry.
Councillor, okay.
Did anyone just want me to explain what the procedural motion is? Is everyone comfortable with that? Yeah, so the procedural motion that the question lies on the table, it just means that councillors require further information or something to happen before they can make a decision. The matter just, rather than being deferred to a specific date, it's there, can be brought back at any time to the table on councillors' request or by the officer's initiation.
Thank you, that's great. So do you want any more clarifications, Councillor Wagner? Okay, so I guess obviously because we haven't looked at the questions, we don't know how long this is going to take, but it shouldn't be forever or anything like that. So I have the procedural motion on the table, that the question lie on the table. It's moved by the Mayor Matt Burnett and doesn't require a second. Are we all in favour? Thank you, that's been carried. And then we can move on to the next item in our agenda. Is that okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Deputy. Over to you.
Okay, so we have item 4.2, request to adopt and commence amendments to the Gladstone Regional Council Planning Scheme. And we have Kimberly, General Manager Customer Experience, and we have
Matthew Kelly.
Matthew, that's right. I will never forget from now on. Thank you.
Thank you. So Matthew Kelly, our strategic planner, is running or leading the review of the planning scheme. So this report seeks your endorsement to proceed with a series of amendments to the Gladstone Regional Council planning scheme. Firstly, the report recommends that Council amend and adopt a minor amendment focusing on improving the workability and compliance of the scheme. This amendment is proposed to take effect from the 1st of December 2025. Secondly, the report recommends that Council commence the preparation of 4 major amendments. These relate to the biodiversity, flood and natural hazard, coastal hazards and tourism. The intent is to update and strengthen the planning scheme in line with recent studies and strategies, including the Coastal Hazard Adoption Strategy, and to reduce assessment triggers where appropriate, particularly for dwelling houses. These actions respond to the 10-year planning scheme review, which Council adopted in September 2024. As part of that resolution, the CEO was to task with preparing a scope of amendments for Council's consideration. While a broader 3-year amendment programme is still being finalised under the 25-26 operational plan, the strategic planning item has identified these 5 amendments as priorities that can be progressed concurrently. Further community engagement is expected as the major amendments are developed. It is anticipated that the major amendments will be adopted and incorporated into the planning scheme by December 2026. I will take the paper as read and invite any questions.
Thank you, Kimberly and Matthew. Do we have any questions? Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you can go over those 5 amendments broadly and just tell us what they are, the pros and the cons. I suppose what I'm specifically after is this going to impact any of the people in our outlying areas, particularly Agnes Water, given that we've had some development challenges down in that area. So just trying to get my head around exactly what this is going to mean. I know that we've got these studies, but I suppose I don't want to see really too many losers.
Yep,
or
okay, so
winners.
with respect to the minor amendment that we're recommending to adopt and to go live the 1st of December, that's really looking at all of the changes that have occurred within the Planning Act and the planning regulation. It looks at definitions, wording, it looks at the state mapping layers that have been adopted. So that amendment will simply update the scheme to reflect the current wording and jargon of the current planning framework, and then any state mapping layers that don't exist within the scheme, they will be embedded within our own mapping system. It's probably worth noting for everyone that we have regard to those state mapping layers anyway, but it's just making sure that when a customer looks at our mapping system, it reads the same as the state's mapping system as well. So that's the minor amendment. With respect to the biodiversity amendment, what we're looking at there is embedding the TLPI. So as you will know, there's a temporary local planning instrument that we've adopted, and that's about vegetation clearing. So what that biodiversity amendment will do is look at embedding that into the scheme so it's there forever, and that will look at protecting vegetation clearing within our region. That is separate to how the state regulates vegetation, but it makes sure that within our region you can't just go and broad clear veg without at least having a look at the planning scheme and making sure that whether you are exempt or not exempt. So it will embed the TLPI. It also looks at the moment, the assessment triggers. At the moment, our biodiversity overlay is quite heavy on triggering assessments, especially with dwelling houses. So what we're looking at is looking at a way to eliminate dwelling house assessments ideally entirely, so that effectively it's big applications that are being triggered by the biodiversity overlay. So if you're wanting to do a house or a granny flat within a rural residential area and there might be some vegetation over it, you can do that without necessarily needing a development application simply because of the clearing component of that. The other component, and this was raised within the 10-year review, our biodiversity overlay code is written inconsistently to the balance of the scheme. So when you open up that chapter, it's a very, very long code and there is lots of double ups and lots of repetition. So instead of maybe talking about vegetation or a wetland 1 or 2 times, it does repeat itself quite a lot. So what we're looking at is consolidating that code so it's written consistently to the balance of the scheme. So that is something that was picked up in the review as well. With respect to the biodiversity overlay, that will have a lot of effect across the region, especially in regional and rural areas, because that's where we tend to see the greatest amount of biodiversity. So that's that one. With respect to the flood natural hazard amendment, what we're seeking at the moment is to have our existing flood studies updated to reflect the state planning policy. So we'll be going out to have an amended study with respect to Boyne Island, Auckland Creek. Obviously, we've recently adopted Agnes, and then we'll be looking at Baffle as well. And that's to make sure that our studies are, I guess, fit for purpose for today. And then we'll also be looking at the flood assessment benchmarks as well and making sure that our flood code is fit for purpose. Again, it's all about making sure we're not triggering houses, granny flats, duplexes unnecessarily. And at the moment, the scheme does. And lastly is the coastal hazard amendment as well. So again, that's reflecting the state planning policy, but it'll also be reflecting our CHAS that we've adopted as well. With respect to tourism, that is I guess, whilst it's a state interest, it probably will be our opportunity to shine and set our localised policy to how we see tourism. The 10-year review looked at developments like Airbnbs, it looked at small-scale farm tourism, and we'll be going out to the community as well to say what would they like to see with respect to tourism and how our planning scheme reflects that. There has been a lot of change within the state and local planning schemes in the last 10 years, so there's already a lot of inspiration around Queensland. So for us, it's going out there, seeing what other shires are doing, but also speaking to our local stakeholders and saying what's not working for them as well. But that will be, the tourism amendment will be a real opportunity for us to set our own localised policy on that.
Okay. No, thanks for clearing those ones up for us. I think particularly the tourism one and maybe even development, I just would like to see, and I'm sure the other councillors have their opinions, it to be simplified. So any move that you're making there that makes it easier to, I suppose, apply and understand would be great. I'm hearing that people that have a household development will probably find it a bit easier with the biodiversity overlay. I'm wondering though, with major multi-dwelling developments, is that going to, do you see any further impact on them, particularly in our south?
Do you mean with respect to the biodiversity overlay in general, or?
Yeah, and the application of it.
It will depend case by case depending upon the site. Ideally, we are wanting to make sure that if you are triggered by the scheme, it makes sense. There are times at the moment currently where different developments are being triggered and it's not making sense. So if it's, especially in the southern area, if you're doing a large multi-storey development, we'd be in the urban zone. So generally it would be already cleared. What you would be experiencing probably more so would be the flood overlay and the coastal overlay. And again, we are looking at refining the mapping then and looking at the codes and the benchmarks. So it should make more sense to the developer when they lodge under the revised framework.
So are we doing some further flood studies? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes, correct, yeah.
I'd really love it, the Auckland Creek one, to be very accurate, thank you. There's a lot of people there that are paying insurance or can't get insurance because of our flood mapping, which I don't believe is reflective currently with all the developments upstream of what it was in the past. Thank you. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Councillor McClintock? And I'll go to you, Matt, after that, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the read. That was a lot. I was trying to look in the track changes type of document, but it's just all red. So trying to get my head around all the different changes was a bit of a journey. I guess at a higher level, I just wanted to try and understand a little bit of even the difference between a minor amendment and a major amendment, and what are the implications of those? Is it to do with how much we have to inform people, the follow-on process? Can you just give a little bit of a brief understanding of what those two differences mean?
Yeah, so with respect to the difference between a minor and a major, the minor amendment effectively will not impact anyone's development rights within the region. So we're not looking at changing a zone, we're not looking at changing the level or the type of development trigger which is included. With respect to a major amendment, we're looking at making changes to how it affects someone's land. So that could be like the flood mapping, it could be the changes to a zone, it could be the changes to the code. So it's about structurally changing the scheme, which will have an impact on someone in their land. So that, and the difference there too is how we notify people. So with the minor amendment, we literally just adopt it today, or recommend to adopt it, and we just take it to the state. We also have to put in a notice in the paper in the Queensland Gazette, but it's very straightforward. With respect to a major amendment, we have to undertake community engagement, and the way that we do that is solely driven by ourselves. So I guess we've spoken about the flood hazard overlay. Depending upon the mapping, depending upon what changes they look like, we will tailor our community engagement with the affected landowners. It would be no different to the coastal as well. So if the storm tide inundation was to change, if coastal erosion was to change, we'll tailor how we engage with the community each amendment. So it gives us the flexibility to respond to that as we go.
And I guess my follow-up to that was, you kind of almost alluded to it there, is what does it look like for us to actually engage with community on that. What have we done in the past, or what are we intending to do in that? Because obviously there's some pretty significant changes here that are going to affect a lot of different people. It's very, very difficult to actually get in contact with people outside of door-knocking houses. What does that look like for us, and what is the intended process of actually looking at our community?
Multiple avenues of engagement, so we'll be putting notifications out on its conversations platform. We'll be using our new bulletin, which I would recommend people subscribe to, and if you go to our website they can find the link to subscribe to that there. We'll be doing face-to-face engagement, targeted engagement that we will be doing over a period of time with particular areas. It will be very specific to what comes out of the needs, and we want to hear as much as possible when it comes to not only what effect it has for them, but also what they want to do with things like the tourism one. So there will be a lot of engagement that we're going to be doing, and I think what Matt's getting at is we're not forced to do it to a particular level, but our intention is to do significant engagement.
Good. That gives me a lot more comfort. The follow-up to that then is just, I was scrolling through and came across the end of the document down there. I started from the bottom and worked my way up just for fun. And there's now things like bicycle parks and stuff like that that have to be included into developments. That's a minor amendment, not a major amendment? Is that correct? We didn't seem to previously make developers. There's rural traders that need to have bicycle parks in their DAs and all sorts of stuff now.
I'm not sure what.
I'd have to get back to you on that specific section. The
Yep.
scheme as it's written at the moment has requirements that people have to build bike parks for, depending upon the type of development proposed.
Yep.
Those requirements are already in there, but I'd have to get back to you on a
Okay,
specific.
so I just couldn't find it in the previous one, and then it's probably laid out a lot clearer in the new one, which is probably the issue. I'm just making sure we haven't changed any of those requirements on that side of things. Okay, that's cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Councillor Burnett?
Thank you. No, Matt answered my questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Do I have any other questions from anyone else? Councillor Davis?
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I'm happy to move that the amendments be tabled. Thank you.
Great. So Councillor Davis is moving the officer's recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McClintock, any other questions? Thank you very much. It's great work, and I'm looking forward. This is going to be one of our first ones. So great. I'm sure we will learn also a lot from this, and then taking it on to the next stages. That'd be great. All in favour? Wonderful. That motion's been carried, and we can move on to the next agenda item, which is Tanya, an amenity 4.3 amenity and aesthetics policy and repeal of residential boundary relaxation policy. Wonderful. Thank you. Acting General Manager for Finance, Governance and Risk.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. This report proposes the adoption of a revised building work amenity and aesthetics policy and the repeal of the existing amenities and aesthetics policy. This is consistent with our review of the overall policy framework with the aim of making things easier for our officers and our customers, and supports the objective of simplifying development in the region. Matt's here to answer any of your questions you may have in relation to the policy.
Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, no question. Happy to move. I think that's fantastic. Streamlines the process, and I think it has a greater understanding for those who need to understand that policy. Thank you. Well done.
Definitely agree with that. Councillor Holzheimer, you're seconding? Yep. Okay. Do you have any questions? Councillor Wagner, any other questions? Online, no. Okay, so Councillor Churchill moving the officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Holzheimer. All in favour? That was great. That motion's been carried, and we can move to the next one. Thank you, Tanya. 4.4, new fee for renewable energy community benefits sharing policy. And back to you, Tanya.
Thank you. Recently, Council adopted a renewable energy community benefits sharing policy. The policy included 2 fees. So one was an application and initial meeting fee, which is proposed in this report to be $500. The second was ongoing fees associated with the consultation, engagement and negotiation of a community benefits agreement. This fee is proposed in the report to be on a cost recovery basis. The officer's recommendation is that these fees are added to Council's Register of Fees and Charges, which can be amended by Council at any time.
Sounds great. Any questions? Councillor McClintock?
Just trying to understand that at cost per hour, how is that then determined? Because there's obviously a lot of variables that can go into what that's actually cost us. How do we give clarity to someone coming in that that's not $1,000 an hour or $10 an hour? What sets the boundaries on that?
It'll essentially be determined by who's involved in the process, and it's a little difficult for us to say right off the bat because we haven't done this before. It will be fair and transparent, and we'll record any officer who's working on this. We'll record their time, and we'll be able to review that and provide an invoice through to the proponent.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Patrick?
Just further on from Councillor McClintock's question, is there a cap? Will we have a cap of payment?
The resolution doesn't propose a cap. Again, it's quite difficult given we haven't done this before, but our fee structure is will be no surprise to applicants and proponents because it's very similar to what other councils are doing.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, any comments, questions?
No,
Anyone
it's
else?
fantastic.
We'll be happy to move the officer's recommendation. Councillor Davis will second this. Councillor Cameron, yes, you have a question? Yeah.
On that, thank you. In most organisations like lawyers, solicitors, accountants, they're obliged to give a fee proposal, which in most instances gives a bit of an estimate of what this is likely to be. Is any consideration being given to that?
Again, it's quite a difficult exercise to give that fee proposal for, having not done one before. It's something we can certainly consider.
Yep. It
to
just
look at
seems
that.
to be a common thing in business these days that a proposal is there.
Yeah.
And generally, back in the good old days, when it was very simple, most things, if you give an estimate, it was reasonable to be within 10% plus or minus on that. So,
Yeah.
I think CEO Lisa?
Just an observation that because these agreements might involve different officers from different disciplines, depending on the nature of them, it's not a straight out per hour fee, and you could have 5 different experts, depending whether we're going in with an environmental element or there's a community development. So I appreciate what you're saying, and the looking through the lens of the customer here is just so difficult to wrap around until they start moving. So, but it's certainly something I think we can take under consideration as to how we keep them up to date with how we're travelling and what we're anticipating. I think that's really good feedback, but it's probably very difficult to nail that
It
down
will be
to a
also
figure.
depending on the qualities and the needs of each project.
Yeah.
I'll assume, so it depends.
And we are also working on processes which will be able to provide proponents an idea of the steps that we're taking to give them some comfort.
Great. Well, I'm sure if you're able to keep us, updated on how it goes and if there's any things we can be proactively addressing any difficulties or good things as well.
Yeah.
I can see Carly there nodding. Thank you very much. So I think I was moving this and we had a seconder and Councillor Davis. All in favour? That's been carried. Thank you very much. And next is 4.5. Again, Tanya, thank you. Contract and expenditure approval for tender 7-26 event hosting services, Easter in Gladstone.
Flick, are you coming
One
up?
of our mayor's favourite times.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll
you,
move the
lots
officer's
of people.
recommendation.
Thank you.
So I hear you want to move the officer's recommendation?
Absolutely.
So I have our Manager of Contracts and Procurement, Kiara Henderson, here with me, and Manager of Arts and Entertainment, Felicity Barker, to help provide any information. Council's Easter in Gladstone campaign is aimed at unifying and elevating events across the Easter long weekend at the Gladstone Harbour Precinct, leveraging local iconic events including the Brisbane to Gladstone Yacht Race and the Gladstone Harbour Festival, while creating new opportunities for cultural celebration, tourism promotion and community engagement. To support the Easter in Gladstone, Council released an invitation to tender process seeking an experienced event provider to design, coordinate and deliver a diverse program of activations and entertainment. This report recommends that Council enter into a contract with the successful tenderer Events Queensland Proprietary Limited, and also to authorise expenditure associated with the contract as it's outside of the CEO's financial delegation. I'll hand over to Kiara for any questions.
I'm sure there's questions, so I can start in this end of the table maybe, or no questions? Councillor Davis?
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you for the report. We only had one tender, is that correct? Yeah, okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Yeah, I was, thank you for providing the feedback as to why we could see there's a number of people that looked at the papers and there for a reason or one or another or a few they didn't. So, and they seem to be valid reasons. Councillor Patrick?
Just so that our residents know, I mean, we have the papers here, which we've read. Can you summarise, moving further on from Deputy Mayor Natalia's comments, for everyone, like summarise it for residents, why there was only really one tender? Or you can't do that? Would that be a confidential matter?
A certain level of financial risk with undertaking such a large scope of work, and it's something that would be very difficult to do and to come into when we have a strong branding footprint already. But it is hard to speak exactly on behalf of those possible tenders that, you know, as to why they didn't actually press forward with it. But we made the process as fair and equitable as we could, and we just didn't get the submissions, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted that explanation so everyone knew that we were being very transparent with this process. Thanks.
Right, thank you. Councillor Churchill?
Yeah, thank you for that. No question, just want a point of clarification, but I'm actually totally supportive of your recommendation, so I'm actually happy to move it so we can progress this and get it locked in. But I just want to get a point of clarification in relation to dot point 1, dot point 2, is that you're recommending that we offer them a 3-year contract with a proviso to extend that arrangement for 2 years, but in your dot point 2, you're actually indicating the authorising the cumulative expenditure of the total amount for the whole 5 years. So why don't we just simply offer the contract for 5 years? You know, through my eyes, I just see that as a common sense approach, unless there is something that you need to make us aware of at the end of the 3rd year period. Is there something that has to be done at 2 years, 9 months?
I think it's just the opportunity to reevaluate how the event is working. Events are a changing landscape, so we want to make sure that we have an evaluation period to go back and look at what's working and what isn't. It's part of, you know, a responsible way of looking at these things, to always debrief and keep in communication what our expectations are. So I believe that 3-year period is just an opportunity for us to have a recommended amount of time to sit down and say what's working and what isn't, and come to the party on extending or not extending.
Yeah, thank you for that, Felicity, but wouldn't you do that on an annual basis as part of a debrief from each year on how you can improve?
Yeah, we certainly do. We do debrief in general, the entire event, but this would be our opportunity after 3 years of delivery to see how that service is working for us in its entirety, rather than the event
itself. This
So-
gives,
I would
Sorry,
have,
Felicity.
anyway,
It gives
I
us-
understand all that aspects
Yeah.
from event management. I would have thought it would have been drawn
really just a
into the
risk
contract agreement,
mitigation.
because if you fail to deliver in the first year, then you're null and void for the rest of the contract. So I'm actually supportive of a 5-year contract, but if you're happy that that's a proviso that can do that, perhaps, sorry, through you, Madam Chair.
contractually, it gives us the opportunity to have contractual amendments after 3 years if it's needed. So while we can review and we can communicate and go back and forth, we still need the ability to make contractual amendments if we need to. And at that 3-year period, we can either choose to go forth under the current contract or potentially look through some amendments
Okay.
to the process.
All right, yeah, happy to move.
That would probably also benefit the applicant, I am assuming, so.
Yeah.
So we have a few people, but we
Provided
have.
we don't get an accumulative expenditure as part of that review, that we end up finding that we have to increase the budget expenditure over and above the current amount.
That would have to come back to the
Yeah,
table,
we
because
don't-
you've only
exactly.
authorised
Yeah, that's
up
what I
to that
mean, that's what I'm
amount.
saying.
Yeah,
Okay, be
sorry.
aware. Thank you.
We have a few people around the table. I do have a mover, however, I wanted to go back to the mayor, because you did say you wanted to move this motion, this recommendation. Is
I'm
it-
happy, but I'm also happy with anyone.
I'm happy to
I don't
withdraw.
mind.
I'm happy to second it
Would
if
you
you
like
wanna
to second the
keep keen.
motion, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Okay, so we have a mover in Councillor Churchill, a seconder in Mr. Mayor, and I have a few people with questions and comments. Melissa, Councillor Holzheimer, sorry.
Councillor Churchill beat me to the punch there. I wanted to say, with moving the motion, I just wanted to say thank you for going out and doing this extra piece of work. You did what we requested by going out to tender and having the conversations and seeing what else was out there, and coming back with this recommendation. And I think it's also worth acknowledging the great event that this provider does put on and consistently puts on for us over Easter in Gladstone. So I'm very happy to support the recommendation as well.
Very good, well said. And we have Councillor Wagner next.
Yeah, thank you for doing the work, echoing what Councillor Holzheimer has said. I think the challenge for us is, and I was listening to my colleague, Councillor Glenn, I wonder why we do a 5 or even a 3-year contract when our council term is not going to be even quite 3 years, with then tying in the next council to funding that we potentially aren't responsible for. And I've seen this a bit, and we inherited, just go back to when we started, there's 5 new councillors, and we've inherited some costs here that we may or may not have wanted to, I suppose, move on or review or look at the alternative. And I know that there is a motion on the table. I propose that it's consistent with our term, that it's 2 years, and I don't mind then that you look at the option further, but I just am reluctant to always tie other people into our desires.
Officers, would you like to comment on that, or? Tanya, CEO.
My only concern there would be around the period that we've went through in the tender. We tendered for a 3-year period, which impacts the way people put their proposal together and the benefits for them, so they can obviously manage that risk over the 3-year period. And I think that we make decisions all the time that tie future councils to expenditure, so it isn't out of the ordinary.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. That's a great question, though. But may I go to Councillor Burnett there? You had your hand up. I think you might want to say something.
Yeah. No, I took it back down again, but I'm just happy to say we do it all the time in our budget. We have a long-term financial plan. We have road networks that require consistent budgets that you've got to be able to think beyond the term as well. And this is the single largest event in our region. And to get the best deal out of the tender, you've got to give them a decent period of time. We ask the officers to go back out and to get the information to do a tender. We've done a very good process, and I think it's a very sound recommendation. I hear what Councillor Wagner's saying, but there are some things that you need to go beyond the current term of a council, and projects, major capital projects are some, and the single largest event of the region is probably another.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple more people. Councillor McClintock.
Thank you, Deputy. Yeah, this is a fantastic event, and really happy that this work has been done, as has been mentioned here before. It's something you just helped allude to before. My concern, just a little red flag there, is that have we created an event that is so niche that it's impossible for somebody else to actually tender and create an opportunity for diversity in this range? Not that I want to take it off what's been happening or change by any means, that's not really what I'm suggesting. Just for the fact that how do we make sure that we keep this going forwards, going bigger and better every single year? Were there some identified ways, and if not, could we consider just identifying within that tender process, was there anything that we could have included or I guess clarified for those who are tendering, given that the ones that won are fantastic and have delivered this really well year after year, and so they're going to have a great understanding of the project, more so than somebody coming in or another local organisation who perhaps could do an equally great job or a different great job, but don't have that understanding. So is there any identified ways that we could actually improve that? I guess is kind of just a high level question, not detailed looking for, but that's just my concern, is that we've created a really niche thing that only one person can really nail as a tenderer.
Sorry.
So happens.
I'm new. I think really the consistent messaging that we were getting back is that they just didn't have capacity to deliver that scale. We don't want to limit ourselves on what's actually supporting what is a huge event in Gladstone. There could be a collaborative achievement within that space. It is then just more work from the events team to coordinate that. So that would be something we would have to discuss in the future to accommodate the smaller providers being included. But yeah, certainly there is a huge financial risk in taking on a scope of that size. So we are limited in regional,
yep,
on what we can actually provide and the providers that we have for that. So, tenders that are coming from, they're travelling, things like that. It's hard to get staff here to accommodate them, to have the resources to deliver something this scale. Really needs to be local, and then that does limit us because of the size of the event. But that's just what it is, unfortunately. It is our largest event of the year.
Oh, absolutely. And I am not intending to try and undermine, to pull off an event of any scale in today's climate is really, really difficult. To pull off an event of this scale successfully, as these tenderers have done and have proven, is quite outstanding. My concern is not just for that outside tenderer, but even for the tenderers that did succeed. Have we narrowed it down so much that we're not letting them expand their ideas and them actually go outside of the bounds of what niche that we've got in? So I probably don't really need an answer specific on that, probably more flagging, just that as we go to tender on something like this, which is a fantastic event, I'd love for even those tendering to be able to dream, adjust, and show us what is possible for this space when we're asking people to bring their tenders and to show us what they can do.
The scope of it is quite broad. We really just set engagement under the umbrella brand for that long weekend.
Yep.
So I think with this particular tenderer, they know what concept works because they've done it previously. And that has been tried and adjusted over the years. So for them, it was probably a lot easier to put that together, knowing what works and what doesn't, given previous experience in that space.
Yep.
So they're probably fairly confident that they have something that works, that they can sell, that reduces their financial risk. But we are open to whatever they propose, really.
Brilliant.
And that was part of the tender process.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I just think it's such an incredible weekend and such an incredible opportunity in our region. It's a great time of year to be in Gladstone, and anything that we can do to keep it evolving and growing is worth making sure that we empower. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. No, my question's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Churchill, you still want to have a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make just a comment, and I'm happy to debate with my respected, learned colleague, Councillor Wagner, in relation to the term of contracts, because it's this level of government that actually can go beyond the term of an elected sphere. And I'm not being critical here, but the other two tiers of government appropriately tend to live within their term of their elected period. And that's the great thing about councils, local governments broadly, and our president of the LGAQ and Australian Local Government Association could attest to this, is that we look beyond the 3-year period. And I can give you a couple of examples, because we've always prided ourselves on the long-term financial plan, which was 10 years. Luminous, a prime example. And the delivery of the bonsai house just didn't happen just during the term of this council. It was planted, the seed was planted back in 2015, 2016, and we eventually arrived at the destination. And I think the fact that what we're dealing with here at this particular stage is our #1 signature event for our region. Yes, there are other great events. It's our #1 signature event, always has been, and we need to be proud of that. If there is the option, and we need to understand that the proponents themselves have put a lot of work and effort in getting to where we are to today, to determine, as they can springboard for the next 3 years, if there are other proponents out there that have that expertise in this particular field, then perhaps they need to be stepping up, and also perhaps liaising with our officers and getting an understanding of what the requirements will be. We do it in many other areas of tenders, contracts, procurements, where those businesses, industries, organisations are proactive, and if they're proactive, I'm sure that our personnel would be extremely pleased to be able to help them if they are able to step up to the highest level that's needed for this event. But local government does it well because we look outside the parameters of our elected period.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. I think we're going to have one more person and we'll move to the vote. Councillor Wagner, thank you.
It's great to see that we're going to operate within our means and beyond our term. That's great, and it's great to see that we're not going to take the lead of our other levels of government. I did note that the Mayor mentioned and did a comparison to the expenditure future planning for roads. I'm not sure whether events and roads, I'd put them in the same category, but I stand, I stand and I understand what people have said. I'm just putting it out there because you don't know where our budget will stand in the competing interests in the future, and you are committing people there on it. I do support the initiative, but I would like it to be noted that if we are thinking of future contracts, particularly for events, because these things often have a lifespan unless they're adapted. If we do tie into a contract here, we do have to have that adaptability. We do have to have clauses in it, I haven't seen the contract, to make sure that it is meeting our demands, and be mindful that some of this, these events do attract an income for that particular supplier as well, and I don't begrudge them that. But we do need to make sure then that is at a manageable level for our community who can attend those events. I have seen these things where council funds them get out of hand in terms of what the community has to spend to attend them. And these suppliers are brilliant, no doubt about that at all. I'm very supportive of them doing this, but I do think that we have to be responsible, and we don't have an endless budget, and it is ratepayers' money. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I think we had enough discussion, and we're all supportive anyway. So I have a mover in Councillor Churchill and a seconder in Councillor Burnett to support the officer's recommendation. Are we all in favour? Can I see your hands? Sounds great. Nobody's against, and motion's carried. Thank you very much. The next item in our agenda is, we're going really well, I'm looking at the time. 4.6, contract approval, tender, RPQS 84-25, environmental services. Back to you, Tanya.
Thank you. To present this report, Kiara and I are joined with Conservation Officer Emily Fellhaber. Council conducted an open market tender seeking suitably qualified service providers with appropriate experience and capability to undertake various environmental services at a range of locations across the region, with the intent of establishing a register of pre-qualified suppliers to support service delivery. The new RPQS replaces previously preferred supplier service agreements for vegetation management and native animal management. The Register of Pre-Qualified Suppliers also provides an alternate option to local buy arrangement for engineering and environmental consultancy. The report seeks Council's endorsement of the Tender Evaluation Panel's recommendation to appoint 21 service providers to the new RPQS. Thank you.
Great. Can I go to Councillor Holzheimer? Thank you.
Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Okay,
for
do
this
I have a
one.
second there? Councillor Wagner, do you have a question as well? Or any comments, questions, anyone? Councillor Burnett, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I do. In the report, it talks about how this is good for locals and how, correct me if I'm wrong, we had 5 locals tender and only 2 are accepted. And I read the confidential attachment as to why. My question really is, it mentions in the report this is good for the, we signed up to be a small business friendly council, yet more than half of the locals then get excluded unless I've read the report wrong, which I'm pretty sure I haven't. And as I said, I read the confidential attachment that tells you why. Those locals and those others that were not included in the final list, how do they then get on the list once they correct those comments made in the confidential attachment?
I can answer that one. So essentially, as part of the RPQSs, we do have the ability, if there is if we do have a requirement, we can actually go back out for an RPQS refresh. So similar to some previous RPQSs that were brought up to council, that there are certain suppliers that unfortunately didn't make it in the first round, we have given them the ability for the second round to ultimately put in and do a resubmission as part of that. But again, it's just based on the requirements of the RPQS, what we're actually utilising it for, and if there are gaps, essentially then determination is made in an operational space to go back out to market to do that refresh.
Okay, fine. The follow-up question then, when you look at the list, I'm sure the list isn't the order of where they go from. They can pick anyone in the list. What is there to benefit the local suppliers to ensure that if they're on the list with others, well, how do you choose? How do they choose? Is it, all right, you're on the list, you're in? Or is there still some kind of process around ensuring locals get more of a go than others and not necessarily? Or is it just everyone in the list, every man for himself?
So depending on the requirement, depends on the amount of quotations that is required. So essentially, the business may have a procurement need for A, B, C and D to the value of X, and depending on what that value is, they need to seek the appropriate quotations for that, and ultimately it allows both the local suppliers and the other suppliers on that list to basically provide that proposal. As part of our local content on top of that, obviously, as you're aware, we do have a 15% percentage on that local content piece. So ultimately, if they are the best pricing and they are obviously meeting the requirements for what needs to be as part of that engagement, ultimately they would be favoured.
Excellent. So, but say there's 5 on the list that they could go to and the requirement says you only need to get a quote from 2. Who determines which 2 are going? Because if you don't include the local in the 2 or 3 that you go to, then the 15% is irrelevant unless the locals are always included in the application, the tender, regardless of the value of the tender itself.
Correct. So that's more of an operational, so maybe Emily might be able to talk to that in regards to how they do the engagements piece.
Yeah, we've been utilising the vendor panel system recently, and I believe, it's quite easy to send the notification to everybody on the RPQS, and then it's up to them whether they open it and choose to submit. So, I think we'll continue using that system as much as we can to ensure every supplier on the panel has the opportunity to view the request for quote.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. No, as long as everyone gets a go, and we're not, if there's 5 on the list that can do a certain job, and we don't then pick 3 because we only have to quote for 3. If they're on that list, they qualify. We ask everyone to put a tender in or a quote in, and then the local 15% weighting can come into play. Then that works for me. I just want to make sure that we don't, that it's an operational issue, because it becomes an operational issue because of this decision we're about to make. So it takes it completely out of our hands, and I often get nervous about these big lists of businesses, especially when we have 5 locals interested and 3 of them are excluded from the list. And as I said, I don't know why. So I'm happy with the answers I've been given, but I will definitely be keeping an eye on these. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor McClintock.
Thank you. My understanding of this process was that once this RPTQPS, too many acronyms, is done, that our process is that we approach as many of those as we like, not the vendor process. But I'm just kind of, as you're talking there, so we still go through the vendor process and allow anybody within that list to apply. Can you just help me understand what is the actual process? So something comes up that we're wanting to get, just further clarification to the Mayor's question, something comes up that we need a supplier for, just a real brief understanding of how did that process work? Because in my head, I thought we approached people on that list and I had the same concerns the Mayor has, but you mentioned the vendor panel. Do we put that up to a panel and allow anybody to actually apply to that?
Correct. So we have actually got, so we utilise vendor panel even for our RPQSs as well. So essentially we can put it up through the system and it opens it up to all of those vendors that are underneath that category. They'll obviously get a notification as part of that system as well, and they can ultimately opt to open it up and have a look at that notification on that particular engagement, or ignore it / decline it.
Okay, great. So even though we've got an RPQS, we still may end up with 10 tenderers that put in some kind of offer for that. This just allows us to choose them without coming back here, is the idea. Is that what's going on here? Just trying to think, what's the advantage to this over just going through the normal process then, if they still have to put a whole tender in?
So the system that we use, rather than doing manual emails, it's essentially going up into a system that has basically all of our pre-qualified suppliers within that list, and obviously all their contact details, etc., to go with it. So essentially when the business have a requirement, they log into vendor panel, ultimately go into the RPQS, select the category or whatever that they wish to do as part of that engagement, and ultimately they can open it up to all.
Okay, great.
Which then all of those suppliers underneath that particular category, correct me if I'm wrong, essentially get that notification to say that there is a request for proposal in the system.
That gives me much better comfort. Thank you very much. My follow-up question to that is, you mentioned just in your commentary before that we can go back to those who are local suppliers that didn't make the cut. What will trigger that going back to them, or can they apply any time? Can they reach out any time and apply to be on that list, or is there a specific time frame that we'll go back to them on?
Yeah, so within the contracts and procurement team, we do panel reporting every 6 months, and as part of that panel reporting, we can actually basically break down all the spend in regards to local versus non-local, and ultimately as part of that reporting we can go, well actually we're not really spending much locally within this panel, and we have the ability to then obviously work with the contract owners to do a panel refresh to go, is this still working, is this not working, are we engaging the right suppliers, are we not engaging the right suppliers? And then ultimately there's a bit of a recommendation determination on whether we then go back out to market as part of that refresh, which then the contracts team do that market research, reach out to our local providers to let them know that we are doing that refresh, and then ultimately go through the ITT process to bring them on. But again, they have to want to become vendors with council as well.
Absolutely.
And obviously as part of the contracts and procurement team, when we do a lot of the market research even before it goes out to market, we're still working with a lot of those local suppliers to actually come do business with GRC.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kiera. Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, a lot of the questions were answered, so thank you. And thank you, Mr Mayor, for raising those points and for Councillor Simon to add to those. Because you did make a comment that, for these ones we did it, and I think that's where the confusion came in, which means that there was a potential that not all the time people went and sent it through vendor panel out there, that some were still saying, oh, here's 3, I know them, I know they do it, we'll just ask those 3 because we've got to go through the process, it's quick or what have you. I suppose if we get to the point where this is the preferred process, perhaps we need to embed that in our policy. That's what I'm going to say, put that out there, that if that's the way that we as councillors, the way I see it, desire it, because at the moment I don't see anything in our policy that says we can't still go, we need to get 2 quotes and a person that needs to go and find whatever it is here can just go, oh, I know these 2 will be quick, they'll turn it around, I need to get it done, I'll just ask those 2, I've met the policy. So I'm just mentioning that, if that's our desire.
Yeah, look, in the interest of transparency, it's our procurement corporate standard that sets out, depending on the value, as Kiara said, how many quotes you have to obtain. So while that might be the case for our environment and conservation team's approach, that may not necessarily be everyone's approach. So just to be clear. And there will be various circumstances where not all of those providers are suitable or provide the appropriate services.
Thank you, Tanya. It's, please, I'll go to the CEO. There seems to be a bit of we need to understand the process from the beginning to the end, and there might be an opportunity maybe offline we can just go through some of these topics together.
I think that's probably a good idea, Madam Chair, that we might do a refresher on these different ones. I did want to point out, Tanya's just touched on it, you can see there's a number of different services there that are provided under here, so not all of these organisations will do all of the things, so there may only be 3 that do native animal management and 2 that do fauna spotting, so it depends on the circumstances as well, and depending on how urgently we might need something too, that can to do it more quickly. Sometimes that's just what we need to do, but we need to demonstrate value for money. We need to follow all the principles that we need to apply whenever we're purchasing, but I guess there's a balance there between the level of prescription of how you would like us to do that versus some of the practicalities and pragmatism in getting things done sometimes too. So all the situations are all quite different.
Thank you, Lisa. That's very good. Well, I'll make sure I bring it up offline to see if we can sit together and go through some of these with our officers. Okay, I have a mover on Councillor Holzheimer and a seconder on Councillor Wagner, if I got it correctly. I'm in support of the officer's recommendation. Can I see if we're all in favour? Mr Mayor, yes, that motion's been carried. Thank you very much. And we move on to, what's the time? Okay, 4.7, contract and expenditure approval. Tender PSA and RPQS 0926, green waste and timber grinding. And we have Laurie coming and Kira as well. Tanya, back to you.
Okay. Thank you. We're joined by Laurie Giles, Manager of Waste Program Delivery for this report, which seeks a resolution from Council regarding the provision of green waste and timber grinding under a preferred supplier agreement and register of pre-qualified suppliers. This involves the grinding of green waste and timber at the Benarabi Landfill, Gladstone Transfer Station and Agnes Water Transfer Station. The service aims to efficiently reduce the volume of stockpiled organic waste in compliance with council policies and environmental requirements. A closed market tender was conducted in accordance with local government regulation, and the officer's recommendation is to endorse the Tender Evaluation Panel's recommendation to appoint Iron Jack Recycling Proprietary Limited as trustee for the Iron Jack Trust on preferred supplier agreement and register of pre-qualified suppliers. The officer's recommendation also seeks authorisation for the expenditure associated with the contract of $3 million, which is outside the CEO's financial delegation.
Thank you, Tanya. Councillor Holzheimer?
My question is more about does did we consider being able to purchase this piece of equipment ourselves and do the work in-house? Because I would just like us to be able to understand the cost efficiencies in regards to going external to GRC and our ability to do it either now or even in the future.
I'm sure Laurie will love to answer that question.
Absolutely. That's a great question. We absolutely did explore that as an option. As part of doing green waste grinding on site at all of our locations, it would require an ERA amendment, which will allow us to actually grind the material on site, and we would also need to purchase the equipment, which far outweighed the total cost of this contract across the term through repairs, maintenance and things like that. So yes, we did.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Great. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this motion? Councillor Cameron moving the officer's recommendation, correct? And Councillor Patrick as a seconder. Are we all in favour? Thank you very much. That motion's carried. Sorry. Yeah, so yeah, we haven't got there yet. But yes. Yeah. But thank you for reminding us, Councillor Wagner. Thank you very much. We now invite Carly Quinn, General Manager, People and Strategy, Garden Organics Implementation, Variation and Opt-out Conditions, item 4.8. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. I'm also joined by Amy Layson, who's Contract Specialist, and again by Laurie Giles, Manager of Waste Program Delivery. So this report seeks your consideration and approval on two key matters that are critical to the delivery of Council's Garden Organics curbside collection service, which is scheduled to commence in July 2026. Firstly, the report recommends that Council confirm that the current service conditions we've already endorsed allow sufficient coverage for any need for additional opt-out conditions. The current conditions have us rolling out the service from July 2026 to approximately 17,000 households, which is already a reduction from the 32,000 rateable properties in the region. Council has already excluded properties where this service isn't practical due to size, either being too large or too small, and has also confined the rollout to Gladstone, Calliope, Boyne Island and Tannum Sands. This approach ensures a balance of fairness, administrative simplicity and alignment with community expectations. Secondly, the report seeks Council's approval for the estimated expenditure of $1.345 million, excluding GST, to enable JJ Richards to procure and deliver the required bins and associated equipment for the rollout. This step's essential to securing manufacturing and delivery timeframes and maintain readiness for our service commencement. This step was also considered at the time of the original tender, so all potential tenderers had the opportunity to include scope for this variation in their tender. The introduction of the GO service represents a significant milestone in Council's commitment to waste reduction, environmental stewardship and delivering value to the community. By diverting an estimated 3,000 tonnes of garden waste from landfill each year, the service will reduce waste levy costs, extend landfill lifespan and support the beneficial reuse of organic material, delivering long-term social, environmental and financial benefits for our region. Over to you, questions.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Carly. I just wanted to make sure that the community knows that we're not doing opt-out at this stage, but we can review and look at that down the track.
You could always change it in future. Our recommendation would be, of course, to wait for the rollout and to get any learnings we have from that, but you could always bring it back to the table for discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, question, Councillor McClintock.
Yeah, thank you. And I take great comfort from the fact that we've eligibility criteria. We have done our due diligence on not putting that onus responsibility on residents to opt out when they shouldn't have got one in the first place. So making sure that the bounds of where we give these is to actually residents that this benefits and that this will be of great benefit to the region. So I'm content with the way that it's there. The only one that flagged as I was reading through this report was the funding risk, and that the way that's worded made me a little bit uncomfortable. Not that I'm uncomfortable with spending this or making this happen, but the whole intent behind this process is to make sure that we are accessing funding, and there's funding available for implementing GO services that we would like to apply to, and I know that's something that needs to happen in the future, but there's a line there that says that the timing misalignment may impact eligibility to access the funding, and I get a little bit uncomfortable that if we're trying to push it so quickly, which I get why, that for the sake of a couple of months and we're now not eligible for 1.3 million in funding, I'd rather wait the 2 months. So can you just clarify a little bit what that line means and
sure.
why that's in there?
I don't have the line in front of me, but I can just explain to you. The intent there is around if we delay any further. So if you wanted to, for example, not endorse this today and for whatever reason, then that would delay things, and then that could potentially mean that the eligibility, if the fund, for example, was already oversubscribed. We're at a prime position right now. We'll be one of the first to access the fund. We've got high confidence that we will receive the funding. To be transparent to yourself and the community, there is a risk. We are proceeding with this without having the funding approved, but that risk is within our risk appetite, and we do have a high confidence that it will be approved.
Yeah, great. No, the way that was my understanding of it, and when I read the report, I suddenly went the other way and went, "Oh, are we making ourselves ineligible by pushing through with this?"
That might be the way we've worded it.
Great. No, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Councillor Wagner?
Yeah, look, thank you for the all the lengths you've gone to actually research and compare with this. It's great. It is going to be one that, you know, for some that may not want it, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for a bit, but we do need to protect the space in our landfill for longer as well, and also we do need to be going down the green pathway, I believe. Can you just explain, there are some opt-in conditions for this. So at the moment it is a predefined service area. And if people are within one of those routes with a truck going out there, they can opt in to it, and also multiple dwellings like units, etc. So they can opt in if they wish. Is that right?
Yes, I might just defer to Laurie. She's probably better across that one than me on the actual criteria, but you're right in your summary.
Sorry. So very similar to our other services, where if there is a truck going past, it will be assessed through the same process. So yes, they can absolutely opt in if a truck's going past, and it'll be assessed the same way.
Okay, and also, but when people have opted in or chosen to opt in, they can't opt out unless the dwelling is going to be demolished or it's been approved by council for demolition.
Yes, so under the
right?
same criteria, yes.
So once you're in, that's it. So what happens then when that person sells that house? Does that opt-in still remain in place?
Yes, it remains, yeah.
Okay.
That's the council's current policy.
Yeah. All right, and we'll be very clear on that for people as well that do decide that they might want to opt in. We'll be really reiterating that this is a lifelong commitment or beyond, perhaps. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Holzheimer? Thank you.
I see Laurie going, oh, what is she going to do? My first question was, when will people actually know that they're getting a green bin? So, and how are we going to communicate that? Because I'm sure there's a communication plan, but I think it would be really helpful for people to understand, are they getting a green bin or green lidded bin or not as well? So can you answer that for me?
I will if you're comfortable.
I think that's a great question.
Yes.
Yeah, just for people to know, I guess, what to expect, yeah.
Yeah. So there is a communication plan that's being developed at the moment. As you're aware, the project has been put on fast track, so we're doing a lot of things concurrently. I don't have that project plan in front of me. I can certainly bring that back to you on advice, but we do have a communication specialist working on it, and I can assure you that it will be well and truly in advance of the rollout in July. I can bring it back to you though and give you some more visibility of the actual planned approach.
That's great because there's a lot happening in the waste space for us, right? Because I think tonight is my bin day changes. So I'm a couple of days ahead and the cycle looks a bit different. So community's got a lot happening to get their head around in the waste space as well. And I know those in the room have heard me say this before when we were discussing it. But I really want to iterate the importance of, in the past when the decisions were made around the yellow bin, we just valued it as a council. That was the council before a lot of us sitting around the table. There was a lot of value placed on recycling, diversion from landfill, and the importance of that as a council. And I don't believe there was an opt-out considered either. It was done really similar to how we're looking at this in regards to who gets the service, and then it's grown and morphed as the community's needs have changed. So I think green bins are quite similar for the councillors around the table. I appreciate that we have been a part of every step of the journey and have been really actively engaged and involved in step by step what this looks like and working together. I know at Lawmac there was quite a lot of conversation last week about the green lidded bins and how we actually got there, and lots of questions, and I think that we will be maybe the poster child of what worked well and what didn't work as well, because it goes both ways whenever you do something new. So I'm really excited and would love to move the officer's recommendation.
Tanya?
Councillor Mosca, just to provide some clarity, and Councillor Holzheimer, I'm wondering if Council would consider the words at the end of the first point, and that no further opt-out conditions are required. Reading it, I understand the intent of the resolution is that what we've got already includes opt-out conditions, but if you read it on its face value, I am a little concerned that it reads as that established go service conditions incorporate, that you're saying that they need to incorporate. It's just something for consideration.
Is that to close out the other resolution?
That is,
Yeah,
yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Would that be, could we have that on the screen? And I guess this is kind of an amendment from the officers, or?
It hasn't
do
been
we-
seconded yet,
Okay.
so Councillor Holzheimer can.
Would you like
Yeah,
to
I'm
move
happy
that
to
with the amendment?
Yeah, I'm happy to accept that small change.
Yeah, okay, can I please get a second there is this the motion or the amendment? It's just a motion.
It is just the emotion.
Okay, great. So can I have a second there? Councillor McClintock. And Councillor Davis has a question.
Sorry, Tanya, with that, does that mean that if we want the opt-out options to come, to further discuss down the track and maybe implement some of them, does that stop that?
No, council can always bring back a matter for consideration.
Thank you. Yeah, just clarifying.
Yeah,
Thank
do you mind if I just
Great
for
point.
complete clarity, there was a resolution that we're acting on that asked us to consider the opt-out options. So Tanya's right, we probably should have really referred to that in there and made that very clear. So we're closing out that resolution. You can bring that conversation back to the table at any time.
Great. Councillor Holzheimer, yes?
When we talked about this, I think that we were really thorough in our discussion about who was getting delivered the service, and I hope I can collectively speak for us in the room, considered what opt-out would look like when we actually developed this decision as well, hence why we haven't put an opt-out condition in that. Can you explain that at all or clarify that, if I've missed any part of that?
Yeah, sure. I guess for some comfort, you've given this due consideration, and from my view, twice, quite significantly. The first time when we considered the service conditions, and we did, I guess for want of a better term, opt out a number of of residents or households in the region due to them either being either too large or potentially too small, such as units and multi-storey dwellings, where you didn't feel that it would be practical for them to need this service, and also where it potentially would not be at this stage financially viable, such as some of the outer lying regions, knowing that in future some of the communities may decide to opt in. So we might get some advocacy down the track in 5 years' time from certain communities who want to opt in, and we can certainly consider those at the moment. But you chose to contain it to where it was most likely needed, as well as would add the best economic and environmental value for the region. After that, you then considered it a second time to consider whether any additional opt-out requirements or opt-out options could be there. We assessed a number of other councils. There's generally three, it talks sort of the paper, but there's generally three types of opt-outs that other councils use. One of them pretty much you've already covered in your service conditions, and that's around the property size. You've already opted those out in your service conditions. And the other two that we considered really start to make it unfinancially sustainable to deliver the service if we go too much lower. So we've got 32,000 households in the region. We've opted out already, and so there's 17,000 that will receive it. It starts to become quite challenging to make it both sustainable from an end point of view and what we're actually going to be not producing, processing, thank you is the word, processing on site, as well as you don't get the landfill benefits. So you have considered it quite in depth twice, and I believe come to what you believe to be the right outcome for the region.
Thank you, Carly. I'm going to go to Councillor Burnett, Mr Mayor. You have your
I need.
hand up? Yep.
Yeah, only that I can't see the amendment change. Can I see it up on screen and can it be highlighted in yellow? What the change is, please?
I think we're just sending it to you in an email quickly, but it's only been a couple of words added to the end. Just give us 10 seconds. Tanya's doing that right now.
If I can see the screen, if it was up there before, but there was nothing was changed.
It was in bold.
Yeah.
Can I see that again?
It was the text was in bold. What was changed is the second line. Yeah.
I gotcha.
If you can see it, then
Okay,
we
let
don't
me
need to
see it.
send it to you. Yeah.
But just
Yeah, I
based
can see
on
that
what
now.
you said, we
I
need to
just-
accelerate this so we can get the funding.
Mhm. The mayor is
Okay.
reading.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know. I'll take Tanya's advice on why that's needed.
No problem. So we have a mover in Councillor Holzheimer and a seconder in Councillor McClintock. Any other comments or questions? No? Are we, this is to move the officer's recommendation with those extra words there. Are we all in favour? That obviously we note that Councillor Wagner is not voting. That motion's been carried, and congratulations, Laurie and the team. I'm thinking that we might just take a break for morning tea, and we'll come back to that. So I've got them. Yeah, so I move that we take a break for morning tea and come back in about 15 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to our general meeting. Okay, so we back on agenda item 4.9, Regional Arts Development Fund Round 1 for this financial year. And we were going to have Kylie, but she's had to step out. So thank you, Felicity. Please let us know what we're reading.
Thank you.
Microphone too.
I'm really good at this. I'm really good at this. Good morning, councillors. So I'm here this morning to deliver the Regional Arts Development Fund Committee recommendation for round 1 of 25-26. So on the 18th of September, the committee met and assessed 4 applications, of which 3 applications were recommended for full funding, totalling $39,854. The recommendations as outlined in the report will leave us with a financial position remaining $67,087.25. So should we adopt the officer's recommendation, I'm very confident that we will still have funds to deliver round 2 of the program.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. And, you know, I think the assessment panel did a really good job of going through these. I do note, though, and in previous ones as well, we're funding things that are going out in schools. Are schools just the avenue for it? Because when I have taught in schools in the past, we actually had the Queensland Government allocated so much for arts like arts projects. You used to get the Arts Council coming in all the time doing stuff. So is this in place, like, does that replace them? Is that why we're getting the funding to do it in schools? I'm just seeing a lot of these coming through.
With regards to this one, it is a little bit kind of niche in what they're actually offering to schools, and it's my understanding that we don't actually have that sort of opportunity within schools at the moment to that sort of scale. So the applicant who has previously applied and been successful for RADA funding did the engagement with the schools, and that feedback supported the application itself, and that did outline that this is something that those schools were missing. But, you know, and I don't know if you had a chance to have a look, the committee did actually make some comment around their plan forward, so whether they need to diverse what funds they're actually accessing, whether that's Arts Queensland or an education-based fund, but that is something that was actually heavily discussed within the meeting.
I'm glad to see that, because we see the cost shifting from the state government repeatedly, and I hate to think that the funding that we do allocate as a council is replacing funds that the Queensland Government may otherwise fund in the schools. I mean, I love the initiative, but I am mindful that if we don't spend it, then we can be spending it on other things too. But I'm satisfied with the nature of that particular program, and I am glad we're supporting them.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that you are discussing the future of that allocation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Councillor Holzheimer, do you want to add something to that, since you are responsible for this committee? Thank you.
The chair, yes. So I think that this panel discussion was a little bit different than maybe some of our others. It showed all the work that had gone in before this process in regards to updating the framework to better align with Arts Queensland, and the training that was done with the group. The committee commented about the smoothness of the process as well, and I also considered and brought forward some of the themes that we have discussed in regards to our other funding that we do in relation to people not actually becoming dependent on council funding to run their projects, and what other opportunities are there out there to fund their projects. also understanding that for some things there aren't other pathways and opportunities for funding for community out there. And the really lovely thing about the Noosa Film Academy request was that they had so much attendance last year that we were overflowing Gladstone Cinema. So they've actually, I believe, considered putting on a second event to do a screening so that more people can attend, because it seems to be growing in momentum and engagement as well as that. So there's been lots of discussions that align with some of the conversations we've had in the boardroom about funding models, how we actually do that forward, and then aligning this with actually what the purpose of RADF is. And I think that that's really reflective in this report and the information provided, because it's changing, which is great.
Sounds great. Councillor Patrick.
I'm just thrilled to see the diversity as well. It's not just one specific arts project, there's obviously a lot. And I'm happy to move that council accepts the recommendation of its Regional Art Development Fund, or RADF Committee, and approves funding to applications received for round 1 2025-26 as detailed in the table.
Great. Do I have a second there for the motion? Councillor Wagner? That's great. Do I have any... I wanted to make a comment about... I know that there was one that was unsuccessful, but hopefully she will reapply. Mackenzie's wonderful, and yeah, anything she needs, I know we will make sure she reapplies, and we give her, if there's any extra support that she can get, it will be great. Any other comments, questions? Mr. Mayor? No? Councillor Holzheimer?
No, all good.
I think that your point is really important in regards to applicants actually stepping up and taking the opportunity for mentoring, and to consider that feedback with their applications so that we can make them successful in their applications and support their applications in the future as well. And that's why there's all different pathways with RADF in regards to the feedback afterwards, and then the mentoring from committee members beforehand, so that the applications actually sit at a level that we're happy to approve. So, great point.
Great. So I have a mover in Councillor Patrick and a seconder in Councillor Wagner for the officer's recommendation. We all in favour? Certainly am. That was unanimously carried. Thank you very much. That was the end of the officers' reports, so we can move to councillors' report. So, Councillor Leanne Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So yesterday I have just returned from Japan, so I just wanted to briefly brief everyone on that. So I did attend. I was successful in being sponsored and using my own funds to attend the Council of Local Authorities for International Relations, which is known as CLARE, for Local Government Exchange and Cooperation Seminar for 2025. It was held from Sunday the 26th of October through to Saturday the 1st of November in Kuroshi City and the Amura Prefecture in Japan, so that was in the north of Japan. The seminar focused on sustainable waste management, providing an opportunity to learn about innovative approaches to waste reduction, recycling systems and community engagement strategies successfully implemented in Japan. And as we've seen today, talking about waste even within our own boardroom this morning. This experience allowed me to connect with international and fellow Australian local government representatives and explore practical solutions that could be adapted to our region, also to Queensland and throughout Australia, and well into the future. The trip was wholly funded by Claire and myself. The insights gained will help inform future discussions on improving waste management practices within the Gladstone region, supporting our sustainability goals and reducing environmental impact. This aligns strongly with Council's strategic priorities around environmental stewardship and resource recovery. In the coming weeks, I will share a detailed highlights report with Gladstone Regional Council officers and our community, outlining key learnings and potential strategies for collaboration and implementation locally. I would like to thank Claire for providing this valuable opportunity to myself for the exchange knowledge and strengthening our international cooperation. Thanks.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Can I go to anyone else? Councillor Wagner?
Yeah, just a couple of things to mention. Really impressed with, I suppose, the level of achievement of some of our secondary school students. Councillor Davis and myself went to Rosedale for their awards night, and some of the outcomes that are being produced there are just out of this world for a small community, and so I encourage everyone who gets the opportunity to be down there and have a look at just the wealth of talent and I suppose the acumen of those students is remarkable. I spoke with 4 of the students there, and all of them are looking at either medicine, nursing, occupational therapy and what have you. That was just 4 of the cohorts, so they're doing some great stuff down there. Went to a high presentation the other night, and I had the pleasure of not just listening to their band, which was amazing, but I went into their new arts building as well, which was funded obviously by the state government, and it is, very, very impressive. I was a former teacher of that particular school, and that was where the old basketball court was, and to see that building in there and being able to sit in there and appreciate it was great. And again, the level of achievement of those students, it's a real credit to that school. So I think our region is doing some really good things. And also, I just wanted to highlight, I heard a story yesterday. I had the pleasure of attending the Youth Council meeting last night. And not only did we see the talents of some of those students in developing Sunny, which is a character to promote sun safety, but I heard a story, and I thought having had some skin cancers burnt off in the last week, I think the story is that there is a lady in the community who a lot of people would know, who's in one of the organisations, and came across this Sunny character and was quite taken by the messages that these students had were giving, and went and had her skin checked, and they found a melanoma, quite a bad level melanoma, and she's being treated by it. She's very thankful for it, but it was this just chance encounter with these students that did it. So look, I applaud the Youth Council for the work they're doing. They're doing some really, really good stuff. So, and they're volunteering a lot of time to our community to support events. The group there is, remarkable. So that's all I have to share, but it's great to see our communities in good hands.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Councillor Churchill?
Thanks very much, Chair. It would give me a pleasure, and I'm very proud to just give you an insight on the official opening of our Gladstone Region Bonsai House last Sunday. And in the presence of Councillor Muscat and Councillor Cameron, and also Madam CEO, Lisa Dowling, and some officers, and the manager for Tondoon Botanic Gardens, Barry Mearing, and also Friends of the Bonsai, and representatives from the Saiki Sister City Committee as well. It's now been christened Yujo, which is a house of friendship, albeit the word Japanese translation is friendship. But if you just, and I know, and I acknowledge that there's been a lot of people who have probably got their fingerprints on this particular project, but dreams do come true. And Sorry, Councillor Wagner, in advance. It didn't happen just during the term of one council. It's been a project of love for a long period of time. And when you see the wonderful volunteers and the Friends of Bonsai now who've been actively involved, they're now saying that the dream has come true as they go on that journey. But just a brief history. The journey began 10 years ago with the master plan developed and delivered on the southern bank of Lake Tondoon for the new bonsai house. And there's been a lot of activity with the bonsai workshops at the Botanic Gardens and also around in other parts of our region. In 2017, we saw a significant milestone there where the Tondoon Friends of Bonsai volunteers were formally formed to help and develop the growth of the bonsai collection. And then since then, they've been educating a number of adults and children over that period of time. With workshops and also bonsai exhibitions. One in particular attracted over 1,200 attendees, and they've hosted World Bonsai Days in the Japanese Tea Garden. And I suppose in amongst all this, it's not only just about EcoFest, it's not about Tondoon Botanic Gardens, but it strengthens our international relationship with Saiki Sister City and Konnichiwa, you're back as such. So the popularity of bonsai is growing, and the other significant milestone for our region is that this is the first bonsai house outside of the major city centre of Brisbane. So, yep, we're second for Queensland, but it's the first in regional and rural Queensland. So I think all those that have been involved, past, present, and acknowledging those for the future as well, need to be applauded and congratulated as well. And last but not least, I suppose, from here now, no doubt the focus will be on what that facility can be used for, not only just for the importance of the displays of the bonsai. And even on the day, the manager, Barry Mearing, there was one of the wonderful visitors, and they came from all different parts, as you would know, Lisa, all different parts of Queensland, that they had another terrific bonsai of value donated to our collection. So it's a bit like consistent with our art gallery and museum. We get donations or we might appropriately secure some of these bonsais. People are now wanting to play an active part. So congratulations to everybody that was involved. And yes, dreams do come true. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. It was a really nice day, actually. Any other councillor reports? Anyone? Okay, that's great. There is no urgent businesses, no notice of motion, and no confidential items. So I will declare the meeting closed at 11:05. Thank you very much. And thank you, Josh.